was 2:17 a.m. The Middle Eastern sky was unnaturally silent, but within that silence, a tension was brewing that could explode at any moment. Inside a deep bunker in Tehran, the lights were dim. Satellite images flickered on large wall-mounted screens, and Iran's top military officials sat in somber anticipation. Suddenly, an officer cried out in an excited voice that an American aircraft carrier group had moved dangerously close to the Persian Gulf. Before he could even finish, a low murmur spread through the room. Everyone realized the situation was no longer normal. At that same moment, thousands of miles away across the dark sea, a massive U.S. aircraft carrier was gliding forward. Standing on the deck, a young pilot looked up at the sky, thinking that if the order came today, everything in his life could change. Another pilot standing beside him whispered, "We just follow orders, but tonight feels different. Something is bound to happen." The sea breeze blew, but even within that wind, a hidden fear lingered. Suddenly, an unfamiliar signal appeared on the Iranian radar system. A technician shouted that it could be a missile. In an instant, the entire control room went on high alert. The commander barked orders to keep all units ready, for if this was an attack, they would not sit idly by. In reality, it was merely a surveillance drone gathering information. This small misunderstanding slowly began to turn into a spark of fire. Within minutes, a terrifying light flashed across the night sky as an explosion rocked an Iranian military installation. No one was certain who it attacked, but suspicion fell directly on America. That suspicion became the basis for a monumental decision. Without any confirmed proof, the order for retaliation was given. In moments, Iran's missile systems were activated, and one by one, missiles soared into the sky, targeting American bases and their allies' positions. The Middle Eastern sky seemed to fill with fire. Sirens wailed everywhere, and people began running from their homes, not knowing where they could be safe. At that very time, an emergency meeting began in Washington. Live updates streamed across giant screens. A general stated firmly that if they didn't respond now, the situation would spiral out of control. After a few moments of silence, the president uttered a single word: "Do it." With that one word, a full-scale response began. In an instant, fighter jets took to the skies. Stealth fighters slipped into Iranian airspace like ghosts. Radar jamming commenced, and cyber attacks were launched. An Iranian pilot screamed from his cockpit that the enemy was close and he was about to lock on. Just then, a missile was fired, and within seconds, a plane erupted in flames, destroyed mid-air. The reflection of that fire turned the entire night sky crimson. Panic spread globally. Major nations issued emergency alerts. Oil prices spiked suddenly, and stock markets began to crash. People took to social media, asking if this was the start of World War III. But the war wasn't limited to the skies. Another invisible war began, a cyber war. Suddenly, power went out in several U.S. cities, and banking systems faltered. Even without direct physical strikes, Iran began creating chaos through digital attacks. America struck back in kind, and Iran's communication systems gradually became paralyzed. In the midst of all this, the United Nations called an emergency meeting. World leaders gathered to try and stop the war, but the situation had become so complex that no one wanted to back down easily. Both sides were already damaged, and the fire of revenge made their decisions even harder. In the middle of this massive conflict, ordinary people became the most helpless. In a house in a small town, a mother held her young child tightly. Outside, the sound of consecutive explosions echoed. The child, trembling with fear, asked if they would survive, but the mother had no answer. Only silent tears streamed from her eyes. The war continued, each minute feeling as long as an hour. Just when it seemed everything was spinning out of control, a message suddenly arrived. Both sides were signaling a ceasefire. They realized that one more step would plunge the entire world into ruin. Slowly, the attacks ceased, and the sky began to grow quiet again. But that peace was not comforting at all. Rather, it was a strange stillness that held the fears of the future. This war had not truly ended. It had merely paused. The fire had not been extinguished, only temporarily smothered, and the world waited to see when that fire would ignite once more.